Только бы паника не поднялась.
В городе слухи поползли о повышении цен на продовольствие.
На весь мир объявили, что будем скоро жить при коммунизме, а сами цены поднимают.
На заводе разговоры пошли, что жить не на что. Зарплату втреть урезали.
Ты советский человек?
Я, да.
Вот именно. В Советском Союзе голод.
Это что?
В нашем социалистическом обществе забастовка! Это как?
Это преступление. Народ несознательно ничего не понимает.
Весь завод пойдет. Мы в демократии живем. Свобода, собрания, демонстрации.
Ситуация критическая. Никита Сергеевич Хрущев лично распорядился отправить Новочеркасск правительственную комиссию.
Эти люди, они затаили злобу на советскую власть. Дай им волю арестовать и судить. По всей строгости, по закону. А зачинщиков к высшей мере наказания.
Все сведения о случайных человеческих жертвах во время событий в городе Новочеркасске квалифицировать как государственную тайну.
У меня дочка, девочка, я вот ее найти не могу. Что вы знаете? Что вы знаете? Это же не по-человечески. Они же свои.
Эти люди должны быть забыты. Об этом вообще говорить нельзя.
Hello and welcome to The Living Room, brought to you by Curzon Home Cinema. If you're watching this live via YouTube, you can join the conversation in the comments section or send us questions via Twitter with the handle @CurzonCinemas, and please use the hashtag Dear Comrades. Premiering at the 2020 Venice Film Festival, where it was awarded the Special Jury Prize, Dear Comrades has been hailed as a masterpiece, which is saying something considering the breadth of its director's career and body of work. And I'm delighted to welcome Andrei Konchalovsky to talk about Dear Comrades. Hello, Andrei.
Hello.
Congratulations on this extraordinary film.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the background to it. When were you first made aware of the events that took place in Novotcherkassk in 1962?
I think when I was a student in 1962, there were rumors in Moscow. But you know, we were so engulfed with studying Fellini and Antonioni that someone told me, you know, there were some shooting in the south, and it came in and it went completely through me. I didn't pay any attention. In the 90s, when everything became public and it was a big investigation and a lot of things were published, I read it first time when I heard it on television, and I start to read about it. But you know, by that time, most of the people were dead. I mean, older people. Younger people tried, younger, I mean, people who remembered, tried so much to forget that it took some effort for them to start to talk about it. There were several books with some investigations and results, and also some memories of participants. I thought it's extraordinary material for the film. It was 30 years ago, but it came and it sank because I had other problems making film. I made many films since that. At the time I was doing the Odyssey and the Line in Winter for America, and then some films in Russia. So later, about 14 years later, maybe 15, I was doing Sophocles and I was doing antique tragedy, Oedipe in Cologne, and my wife, actress Julia Vysotsky, and she played Antigone, and I was absolutely so impressed by her tragic dimension of her talent that I said, I have to do something as a Greek tragedy in that genre. And it's very specific genre, we can discuss it. But anyway, that came together, my idea of Antigone or Medea, for that matter, and the situation when the big crowd comes as a fatum, as a destiny. It's like in Greek tragedy. and it came together quite interesting, because I thought it's interesting to see not a worker, not a woman who works in the factory and she doesn't have money to eat, but from the point of view of functionary, staunch communist, Stalinist. Basically, I can say it's a generation of my parents. And, they went to the war. They were fighting with the Stalin's name. And all of a sudden, the image of Stalin was ruined. And it was a great crush in ideology and big tragedy for them. So that's how I decided to do it.
And it's quite interesting that you have chosen to film from the perspective of these people who throughout the film talk about the good old days under Stalin when things were better, because it really does heighten the tragedy. We're not following someone who's rebelling against the system. We're following someone who sees themselves as so much a part of a system. And it's not just the tragedy of what happens to those people, but seeing this person's entire viewpoint shattered.
That's a very, very good observation and a good question, because, of course, it's not the first idea that should come to my mind. But I was interested, as you said, about, there were, the regular Soviet person wasn't anti-Soviet. The regular majority, of course, there were a big part of the society was in Gulag. And some of them, dissidents doesn't exist, because dissidents in time of Stalin didn't exist. They went to Gulag straight there. But the majority, it was Soviet people, were very, very Soviet, so-called. They believed. And I wanted to see how the idea, and I would say the devotion to certain idea can blind the person first. And fanaticism can also limit the vision. At the same time, when it's crushed, I think it's extraordinary psychological violence. Not physical, but psychological. And it's not easy to do in dramatic writing. At the same time, this is the core of tragedy. The core of antique tragedy is psychological violence and ambivalence. It's important ambivalence, because you never have, very good or very bad person in tragedy. They're all bad and good at the same time. And sometimes terrible person like Macbeth, he cannot be not a hero. He is a hero, but at the same time, he is evil. And the tragedy of an evil hero, it's always some kind of redemption. And I like the silence after this film. When people sit and they don't know what to think, it's kind of perplexed. And the tragedy should make you be perplexed, because you have to be engulfed and you have to digest what the hell I've seen and make my decision. And I like this silence, and I like people who said that, for several minutes we couldn't talk and we just walked. And I think this is important David Mamet, once a great American scriptwriter and director, said, the most important part of art is not immediate reaction, but contemplation on what you've seen, because that helps your soul growth.
It's also very interesting watching the film, I think, and part of the reason perhaps that silence people experience at the end of a film is if one is setting up a Manichean world of plain good and evil, yes, it's easy to side with one over another. But when you have compromised characters, one of the things I felt watching the film is, well, if I were in that situation, how would I react? And when you have these compromised characters at the center of the narrative, it becomes more of a problem for the audience. Yes. Not to identify. I think in a way we identify more with these characters because they are too human, and they are all too human.
I'm glad that you mentioned it, because for me, my last 10 years that I'm working with Michelangelo, and then before Paradise, I'm in several films, four now. The most interesting thing for me is to follow ambivalence of human life. Yeah. Ambivalence because, as Anton Chekhov, a great Russian writer, said, the wisdom is mixed in life with the stupidity, while the vulgar mixed with the most honest things, the ugliness mixed with beauty. It's all together, and you should make your decision. And I think for me, the most interesting pieces of art gives you this kind of opportunity to make your own decision, because you learn like from life, and also it suggests you something to imagine. And I think it's the most interesting for me in my latest period.
So with this film, when I was thinking about it after I saw it the first time, I started thinking about Andrei Weider's Katyn, which was made some 12 odd years ago. And I wondered, was your decision, as well as finding out about this film, an emotional response to a film solely, or did you want to make the film as some kind of act of remembrance, almost in a way making it concrete, saying this did happen and here is a memorial to what happened?
You know, if I have been doing a documentary, then it will be a political statement, a pure political statement, and then you can make act of remembrance. You can make different. You can have a different tasks to do the film, because it's documentary. I'm doing usually the films that I write like music. That's why I said Antigone, because the contemporary thing usually is not, which is really very actual. You can make absolute contemporary, actual documentary that will leave you completely with cold nose. And sometimes a film that bouleverse, that explode your soul. You cry, you're frightened, you laugh, you try to understand, you have a compassion, you have impassion, you have hatred, fear, all together. If it takes you completely, I think this is contemporary, because you believe.
So when it came to the actual physical making of the film and the lead up to it, how did people respond initially when news came out that you were going to be making this film? Was there opposition to it?
You know, of course, you know, when I was shooting the film, as a matter of fact, when I wrote the script and then I was shooting the film and cutting it, I want a scandal. I want a political discussion. I want to be accused that I am a Stalinist or whoever, or I want to be accused that I am anti-Soviet. I am not a Stalinist, I am not a anti-Soviet. I am a Soviet artist, Russian Soviet artist that was allowed to tell the truth. It's not anti-Soviet, it's just fact. Blank facts, documents, the sessions of committee, central committee, party bureaucrats, sitting poor guys. They don't know what the hell is going on. They are waiting for orders from center. Center is silent because waiting for orders from Moscow. This is extraordinary. The society and party bureaucracy is paralyzed. And it's not anti-Soviet, this is bloody fact. And I didn't want to make film against. I just wanted to make a statement. That's how it was. And when I finished the film, and I saw it several times, all of a sudden, by being so meticulous in first part, I was reading the stenograms of some meetings, party meetings. It was very boring. And I said, I want to put it in. Who the hell is going to watch it? And I put it in, I shot it, and it's not boring to see. So what I want to say that I saw the film several times, I realized the half of the film is about fear. And I didn't want to make film about fear. I just wanted to make state certain facts. That's it. But it came out about the fear.
Yeah, what's extraordinary, and we get right from the opening scene in the bedroom, this complete blurring of the line between the political, the public, and the personal. Yeah. And what's incredible, I think, if any of us had read on the page the dialogue that these two characters speak, we may have thought, really, would someone say that? And yet, when you see these two ideologues speak, and it's not as though they're speaking in any intimate manner at all, and yet they are, but what they're saying is the party line. It is quite extraordinary, and it also does make me feel like, for me personally, growing up in an environment that I grew up in, that feels such a world away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where we are.
I think there is absolutely a double life, usually in every ideological totalitarian society. And I made film about it, calling Paradise. As a matter of fact, when I was doing Paradise, it's a story of Holocaust, and the main character in there is very handsome, aristocratic officer, SS officer, who playing Brahms and reading Russian Chekhov, and specialist in Slavic languages and literature. And at the same time, he is a Nazi. And there is a line that he says in that script, in that film, if I was living in Russia, I would be a Bolshevik. And that clicked when I saw that film. It's interesting to see a mirror reflection of fanatical of one side and mirror reflection of fanatical on the other side. It also was some kind of gnoseology of the idea what I want to do.
And there's an interesting exploration of what it is to be a fanatic anyway, because you've got this fascinating character of Victor, the KGB head in the town, who initially is a very terrifying individual, but as the film progresses, we're left with the question, is he making himself more charming in order to ingratiate himself with this person, or is he actually being for real? And it's a question that's never answered, and it's something I find very disturbing to come away from.
That's one of the goals to be first of all to make you disturbed as an audience and be perplexed and make decision. Who is he? Is he? But double life for KGB agent was absolutely normal. I mean, I knew. I had some friends in KGB, charming guys. We drank vodka a lot, reading Pasternak and other dissident poets. And then he went to his office and he did the job he had to do. It's in that sense double life. At the same time, I don't want to answer these questions. And when someone asks me like this, or I say, whatever you say, I say, you're right.
Okay, in that case, let's move on. You mentioned your 2015 film Paradise, which is also shot in black and white and in Academy ratio. I was wondering, did you intentionally make this film the same way to have some kind of link as perhaps two films that look at specific periods in history, or was it just the format was perfect for both?
You know, between these two films, I made a film that's just coming out about Michelangelo, and it's called The Sin, and it's also Academy format. You know, all of a sudden I realized that the frame of that kind gives you more space than less, because it's strangely enough, because you have sky. In that format, you can have sky. In any kind of these formats, you have talking heads, and you have a horizon but no sky. And for me, you know, today we can listen to Beethoven or great Hamul Mass of Bach, one of the greatest music on iPhones, like on iPhone with a, you know, ear with ear, and it's very small sound, but you feel magnitude. Although you can hear the rapper very loud, but it's not going to have a dimension. It's very interesting that you suggest certain things and audience buy it.
And it's interesting that I think over the years, the word epic has always been associated to this idea of the VistaVision, the big wide screen. And yet, you know, if we go back to someone like David Lean and Lawrence of Arabia, to me, the most epic moments are the most intimate moments in that film, because that's when someone's soul is bared, not the big battle scene. And that's one of the things I find interesting about watching this film and seeing Paradise and other directors who've chosen Academy. Epic doesn't necessarily have to relate to the visual of it. It's how you're telling the story.
That's the question that humanity is grasping, but trying to grasp. Is more, or is more less? Because if you're like a child that has his room full of toys, he can be very unhappy because of many toys, so many toys that he is bored. But if a child doesn't have anything and have one little toy, he can be very happy and be playing with it. And I think the same thing with image. You know, great French director, one of the greatest cinema artists, Robert Bresson, who was not very popular, but a great artist, a real cinematographer, not a movie. He said it's very important for the director not be mistaken what he's showing, but it's more important for the director not to be mistaken what he is not showing not. And that's very, very interesting, because less you show, if you have intentions to be suggestive, the audience go into it because the audience like to fantasize. We don't have to chew everything and pre-digest it for the audience. Audience like to emphasis on something that can be suggestive. And I think young directors, not many of them, including me when I was 20 years ago, I was thinking that I know everything about film language. And now I think I don't know anything about film language. There are some mysteries of recorded images, some mysteries that has to be explored. And for me, it's a fascinating way of learning.
I think that question you were just saying about Bresson leads me perfectly to the central scene in the film, the shooting, that we have the build up to and then the fallout from. I was fascinated by the way you shot it. So at the back of my mind, I had this idea that you have the total opposite of what Eisenstein did with Strike, where you've got the workers being valorized, standing up, and you have montage sequences that show how brave and wonderful they are. And here you have a montage sequence about the workers who are being shot down because they're regarded as the villains. That's probably my own reading of it. But I was just wondering, could you talk about the way that you approach that sequence? Because it is incredibly stylized.
Yeah, not stylized, design.
Design, sorry.
You know, Eisenstein lived in time then the language, film language was developing, and humanity still tried to open the possibility of image and the editing, the shortcuts, the close-ups. And it was the moment the young film directors, and not young because the cinema was by that time 20 years or less, still devouring in film image. And it was silent movie. So when the sound came, the image became more suggestive because you could give everything through sound, even taking away first. And then, you know, when I was thinking about the film, of course, I was thinking how to shoot it. And I was thinking I will go with a moving camera, hand camera, many things, handheld things. You know, it's so exciting to go there. And then I said, will they do something new? No. So in that sense, suggestive, a point of view, a mute image with the music. When I came to this hairdresser in front of the, I found, my goodness, would I risk? Will I have enough guts to shoot it from this place without moving camera whatsoever? And I decided to jump from the cliff, and it worked. And I'm very happy that I did that, and I didn't have any editing possibilities because I said, no cameras outside. Of course, later on, we put certain long lenses when soldiers take corpses from not many shots, but important, also suggestive. And, you know, it's very, for me, Bergman, in that sense, one of the greatest suggestive directors. He has in his film, I think, Face to Face, a scene of erotic act with a woman that that psychologically sick, but we don't see anything except legs and the person staying in the doorway. Everything is behind, but it's so frightening. It's much more frightening than go in and see it full blast, because that's the difference between erotic and pornography.
And what we have in this sequence in the shooting, and I was going to say about the hairdresser, because we see her earlier, we have an emotional attachment to her. It's just the horror of not actually seeing her shot, of just seeing the legs lying on the floor, and then obviously the other woman being brought in and shot through the throat. It's having less makes it much, much worse and more horrific.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate really your observation.
We almost are out of time. I just wanted to talk about the reaction to it. What was the reaction in Russia like, and then the international reaction and your response to that?
You see, Russians, those who like cinema, let's put it this way, most of them were taken away. They loved the film. But there are certain fractions, a big society fractions, politically oriented. Some of them are very liberal, and some of them very conservative. Conservative said, this is anti-Soviet film. Liberal said, this is a Stalinist film. And they fight between themselves. And I wanted it, because I wanted kind of shake a little the mentality of of our society. Of course, it's not something that it's not the recipe, it's just discussion, because I want society to be awakened.
And is there not a sense that if you've got both sides telling you that they're outraged by it, you must be doing something right?
Yeah, those who really didn't care about political connotation, they took it as a piece of art, as a music, as something that maybe can, you know, Paul Scofield playing Macbeth. It's always very contemporary. It cannot be otherwise, but it's antique. It's a classical tragedy. So in that sense, I want to be actual in that sense. Of course, I don't want to just discharge or discard political connotation. It doesn't mean that I want, not at all. But there is kind of a double meaning. The main meaning for me is Greek tragedy, Antigone, and the second, of course, Soviet life. But you know, I made about Soviet life quite new. My second film was banned for 30 years.
Asia, yes.
I didn't make it anti-Soviet. I just shoot the people in the fields, and they were very nice. But then it was banned because people are exactly as they were, not like in Soviet cinema.
Dear Comrades is available now to stream on Curzon Home Cinema. And if you enjoyed the film and also this event, please tell your friends. Andrei, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for your questions.
Once again, congratulations on your film.
You are my man.
Thank you. Lovely to see you. The next event in the living room we have is tomorrow, Friday, the 19th of February at 7 p.m. with Jasmila Jabanik, the director of Quo Vadis Aida, will be in conversation with British filmmaker Mike Leigh. So do join us for that and look on Twitter and Facebook for all the updates. Thank you again, Andrei, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.